Certainly, ever since I've been here 7 years ago, come then, I've known this annual Novena to be such a popular event at this time of the year. And I know there have been memorable speakers of various sorts down through the years, but I think deep down the main attraction has always lain in the fascinating figure of the little flower, St Therese of Lisieux. I think she's an attractive saint who died in 1897 because she was very real. She was in many ways a spoiled child who wanted things her way. And yet during her short 24 years of life, much of it marked by loss and illness, she allowed the Lord to mold the strong passions of her heart to serve his kingdom. That meant that she ultimately found joy, as our title says, in the will of God. Her struggles with pain and disappointment didn't make her sour or angry, but actually purified her so that she could still be passionate but joyful in the Lord. The love of God took this real young woman and formed her into a saint with her own little hidden way that was unknown at the time of her death. And I suppose that's part of the reason why she remains so attractive to later generations. And yes, and we need to remember, she was a young saint who didn't reach her 25th birthday. Our modern culture tends to tell us that we should have fun and avoid too many responsibilities before we sort of take things seriously and settle down and life becomes complicated. Therese grasped difficult nettles when she was a teenager. So she's a saint, I think, who invites our young people to believe that God has a dream for them, despite all the obstacles that might seem to be in the way. Therese, of course, as you know, was a sensitive child who'd lost her mother when she was just 4 years of age. That leaves a mark. Often her own health wasn't good, but precisely in these painful circumstances, struggling with them as she did, she became convinced of the love of God for her. Just age 13, she had an experience, and in her own words later on, she wrote, "God worked a little miracle to make me grow up in an instant. Jesus, who saw fit to make himself a child out of love for me, saw fit to have me come forth from the swaddling clothes and imperfections of my childhood." And having done that, she was able to develop a childlike maturity. She had little time for childish adulthood. So Therese is not just sweet and harmless. She calls us this week to help our young people mature and grow in wisdom. A society which canonizes childishness or selfishness does them and us no favors. A church which cherishes and promotes Therese or Claire Crockett or Carlo Acutis, that sort of church will help heroes to be born out of the furnace of their personal struggles. And Therese also promoted devotion to the holy face of Jesus. She was able to see the love of God even in the bleeding face of Jesus, imprinted on the cloth of Veronica. She saw the suffering face of Jesus as one who is in loving solidarity with the suffering world. Our world faces much pain and loss, and she would invite us this week, in our concrete circumstances, to come with our own scars to the foot of the cross, to the face of Jesus, and to leave our crosses there with him. He can help us make sense even of terrible loss. He will bring resurrection where many can see only disaster. Therese knew that from her own experience, that love can make sense even of terrible suffering. And finally, our Sunday Gospel today, which we heard again this evening, tells of Jesus who loves us as the Father has loved him. That's a high standard. So love is not something that we try to offer so much as a gift that we have to first of all receive. We can love because God has loved us first. Bathe yourself in that this week, as Therese had to do. The love of God is the model and the source of all human love, and of the love of which we are capable. So Therese could write, "After earth's exile, I hope to go and enjoy you in the fatherland. But I don't want to lay up merits for heaven. I want to work for your love alone, and in the evening of this life,
I shall appear before you with empty hands, for I do not ask you, Lord, to count my works. All our justice is blemished in your eyes. I want then to be clothed in your own justice and to receive from your love the eternal possession of yourself. This is a week to savour the love of God as Therese did. That love of God given as a free gift here and hereafter. In the words of Jesus in the Gospel, only in God's love can our joy be complete. So I hope and pray that all of us can find this a time of renewal as we seek to recover from the wounds of the pandemic and of lockdowns. There's so much need of healing, much of it we haven't even seen yet. St Therese offers her example and her intercession. In her time, she allowed God's grace to work because she was not afraid of being real. We too can allow God into the patchwork of our lives. That's why Therese is a saint for our modern time as well. And we ask that she accompany and inspire us this week to know that love of God that she came to know in her own short life.